Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Total Saints podcast. I'm Martin Starke and this is our weekly get-together with some Saints experts to discuss all things Southampton Football Club. As always, we're streaming live our podcast on Facebook and on YouTube, Twitter and on Twitch. So thank you for watching along tonight. And don't forget, you can leave your comments and we will get to those as we go. Actually, thank you, as always, to start with, to our TSP patrons. Remember, anybody who joins our Francis Benali or Mick Shannon tiers before the end of August will land themselves the exclusive TSP t-shirt. You have to visit patreon.com/Total Saints podcast to find out more. And as mentioned last week, we're doing shout outs for anyone who leaves us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. And we had loads this week, so thank you. These are all Apple usernames, so it might sound a little bit strange, but Saxago, Southern Northerner, Mossy5991, Dad's Dance Best, Scott Vidler, John Boys, there are others, Stepgar, Frenchy LF, Saint Tadich, and Beaveros. Thank you for your reviews. Also, Kirklander, who said in his review, Glen's gone through so much, so it's only right that you give them a listen. Nice sort of nod for Glen.
What?
The sympathy vote, it all works.
Oh, okay.
It's all okay. And Sean19SFC says, nothing makes my Monday commute more enjoyable than Steve Grant's dulcet tones.
Oh dear.
I dread to think what that Monday commute must be like. It is a shameless plug, but it does help us get found on the podcast apps. So anybody who leaves us a review and a rating this week, we're going to carry this on. You'll get a shout out next week. So you need to head to Apple Podcasts. You need to find the Total Saints podcast and leave us a decent review on there, and we will do the rest. All right, coming up this week on the pod, reaction to our first away win since February. Decent comeback at Leicester. We're going to preview the trip to Cambridge United in the second round of the League Cup. It's Manchester United next in the Premier League at St Mary's, and we're going to chat transfer rumours as well. Let me introduce our panel for this week. Steve Grant is the owner of SaintsWeb. Glen de la Cour is the writer of the blog League One -10. And Alfie House is back this week. He's the Southampton reporter for the Southern Daily Echo. Underpinned by our TSP patrons, this is episode 204 of the Total Saints podcast. So Saints recover from going a goal down to take all 3 points at Leicester. 2-1 the final score. Steve, I'm going to come to you first this week. A huge victory and desperately needed. You must be pleased with that one.
Yeah, great result. And I think it's one of those sort of fairly rare occurrences where the fixture has kind of fallen at a very kind moment for us. Because, I mean, you look at the headlines that Leicester are generating off the pitch at the moment. It's basically like that. They seem to be recreating the Ronald Koeman training ground photo of basically all of the players just vanishing, where you've got Wesley Fofana who wants out and was left out of the squad completely on Saturday. Seemingly Yuri Tielemans doesn't seem to want to stick around too long, and he was only on the bench. So yeah, they've got some issues there.
It's nice to see it happening to somebody else, isn't it?
It does make a pleasant change, but I would kind of temper that with I'd actually quite like there to be interest in our players because it shows that you're doing something well. So it's one of those where when you're a certain size club, if you are getting picked at by the bigger clubs, then they obviously see you as a threat. So I mean, let's be honest. We would all give our right arms for the trophy haul that Leicester have pulled in the last 6 or 7 years. So yeah, it was. I mean, that was an excellent turnaround. Played well enough for the most part. I mean, I think the first hour or so was kind of a non-event. Really, there wasn't an awful lot going on in either box until James Maddison opened the scoring. But after that, we showed the urgency that we needed to, and created the chances that we needed to. Two great finishes from Shea Adams. Almost got a hat trick in injury time as well. And I mean, surely that performance off the bench, given that he was only half fit, and I think we all kind of accepted that he was probably only going to be able to play 25-30 minutes given his lack of training this week. I think that puts to bed any talk of Shea Adams leaving, surely. Because yeah, I mean he's the guy that's found the back of the net and got us up and running, really.
Yeah, you'd like to think so. Glenn, what did you make about this new resolve and desire that the squad were showing yesterday?
Well, it's another slap in the face for the Daily Mail, isn't it? So 2 games running where we've been behind, and the team that's not playing for the manager has come back and got 4 points.
It's the best thing they could have done for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure we'll see a retraction in the paper at some point in the near future. Not. So no, it's great. Where's it come from? I mean, it is interesting that the bench has had such an impact over the last 2 games. I'm loving the camera's always panning to Ralph talking to the guys on the bench. The Richard Kitzbichler's more involved now, which is interesting in itself because he was sat in the naughty step with Kelvin Davis and all that lot last year. He's obviously been encouraged to step forward, and Ruben Sellers is stepping forward as well. And yeah, so at the moment, when they're making the substitutions, even the relatively mad-looking stuff like Lianco going in midfield seems, it's all sort of paying off at the moment. So bring it on. And whilst we were all a bit skeptical about the 5 subs thing, it does seem to have given Ralph something to think about, and he does. I think we're getting to the stage now where it's going to end up like a bit like rugby union, where it's going to be starters and finishers almost, and we're almost moving away from this, this football concept that we've had for hundreds of years, where. Well, not hundreds of years because we didn't have subs then, but where we had a starting 11 and we had subs who weren't good enough to be in the starting 11. I think we're kind of moving away from that. Joe Aribo last week being the case in point, where he was left on the bench to do a specific job later in the game. So, maybe we're going to go down that route. But if you've got a squad where the players on the bench are as good, if not in some cases better than what's on the pitch, you can affect games later on. But it's just really interesting that we've finished the last 2 games strongly, and as anyone who's followed Ralph's tenure will know, that's never been the case.
No.
We've been the team that's got to 70 minutes and died.
There's plenty of graphics that Sky have got to prove that as well.
Yeah. Yeah,
well, we must be top of the points won from losing positions table this season with 4.
Makes a change, doesn't it? Alfie, Ralph's had his critics, myself included, after the last couple of games, but it felt yesterday that he certainly got most of the calls, if not all of them, right.
Yeah, I'll sort of echo some of the same thoughts that Glen had, really. Of course, it was a difficult week last week. He couldn't resist having a dig at it in his press conferences because he was hurt by it, and it did affect him. He is a manager that claims to have a good group around him, and I thought his team have responded. He's responded, and we mentioned the finishers, the subs. I mean, it's simple to point out that Shea Adams, made the difference yesterday, and it was the same at Leeds. It was the 3 substitutes that came on and affected the game. But what I was really impressed with Ralph yesterday was his agility in the match. In the first half, he made a couple of positional changes. So Joe Aribo and Moyo Yunusi swapped positions when Leicester were dominating the first 20 minutes, and Joe just sort of steadied that ship in the midfield. And Sekou and Adam Armstrong did the same thing, the left and the striker position. And I think that's something that we probably haven't seen from Ralph enough, is him willing to change his plan after 20 minutes, 25 minutes. And, people will say that Ruben Sellers is up there in the technical area. Maybe he's in his ear and he's saying that this isn't working. But whatever it is, it's working. And that's what you want from your manager and his coaches. So I have to give full credit to Ralph. He came out in his press conferences after and he was really delighted, but he wouldn't accept credit. He's always going to pass it on to the players, as managers should do. But yeah, I thought it was a really impressive management performance.
Let's talk about Shea Adams, because I think we need to start with the positives. We're looking at the moment in the transfer window for a proven goal scorer, someone with a bit of experience that can bang in some goals. You're right, Steve. He's not going to be going anywhere in this window, is he? That was a really good half an hour from him yesterday.
Yeah, he shouldn't be. I think part of the issue with Shea is that we've seen that sort of impact before. And I think the key to him being a more consistent and more rounded footballer at this level is being able to replicate that on a more regular basis. I think we're all fairly accepting that he's the sort of player who should be getting into double figures, but at the moment, possibly any further than that is going to need a little bit of work. And let's be honest, he needs to be in a team that creates more chances for him. Because it's not as if like last season we were creating loads for him and he was just missing them all. He was scoring a pretty good proportion of his chances, and yet he ends the season with, I think, 7 Premier League goals, which, I mean, if you've got 4 or 5 players who are getting 6 or 7 goals apiece, absolutely fine, not a problem. You can get away with having a kind of non-scoring centre forward, if you like. But when you're in a team that relies so heavily on James Ward-Prowse scoring direct free kicks and sort of other long distance goals on a regular basis, then I think you need other attacking players to step up. And obviously he's done that yesterday. Hopefully that's a sign that he can possibly then kick on for the next couple of months and see where we are in sort of October, November time before we break for the World Cup. Which
I know you were impressed.
Sounds weird
well.
saying that.
It does. It doesn't sit right, does it? We were having that chat in the pub at lunchtime. Glenn, I know you were impressed as well. He was unlucky not to get a hat trick, which would have been awesome.
He was. It's not just the goals. It's great that he gets the goals. It was the second he came onto the pitch. I think the first action after that was either one of the centre halves or Bazunu kicking the ball long, and Che just held off Johnny Evans, I think it was, brought the ball down, set the play going. What I've noticed with him this season already, I know it's only been two times he's been on the pitch. He's not the tallest, but he's a big unit in that. Sorry, this inappropriate thing to say. His legs are enormous. His backside is enormous, and he just is this big unit that, and he seems to be playing to his size this season. And I've not always seen that from him. Sometimes last year he would just get brushed off the ball, whereas there was a real intent when he came on the pitch that he was going to bully the defenders. Now it's one of the if we go back to the Spurs game, one of the problems I had with our defending is that we weren't imposing ourselves on the attackers and we were just letting them do what they liked. And that's something I'd like to talk about later on about the way our defence really got in the faces of Leicester. Leicester's attacking players yesterday, but Che came on with an intent. I'm going to make it uncomfortable for you. You're going to have to foul me, or you're going to have a really hard time. You're not going to have a free ride. And he did so much in that half an hour on the pitch yesterday, other than just scoring the 2 goals and hitting the post at the end. I thought it was a really proper centre forward, almost old style centre forward performance out there. And I mean the goals are the reward, and I like the fact that he did the Ayoze Perez celebration at the end, taking that on from Jack Stevens from a couple of years ago. So you can tell I've just been on Leicester Fan TV, where all they wanted to talk about was the 9-0 again. And it's just stop it, lads. It's boring now. Boring now. We've beaten you twice at your ground since then. So
plenty of comments coming in about Che. Actually, one that he was skipping about like a gazelle yesterday. Alfie, we know that he is a confidence player, and Ralph said once famously that he's like that bottle of ketchup, and once it starts, it doesn't stop. So, can we expect a few more goals? He's certainly going to be key, I think, going forward.
Well, I mean, I'd love to say yes, but I mean, it's impossible to say yes because, of course, we've seen it before with Che. But actually, again, I agree with Glenn, not to just echo his thoughts all afternoon, but if he's going to get on the pitch and put himself about, I thought he did the same thing that Glenn mentioned against Leicester, against Leeds, where he's got his back to goal, he takes the ball down and he plays it off, and then Adam Armstrong went on the left-hand side, put it in, and Aribo scores, game on. If Che's going to do that every single game, he doesn't need to score. You know, he gets 7 or 8 goals again, but he's doing that all the time. Then Saints are going to have chances, they're going to create chances, they're going to score goals. And yeah, I think I spoke to Carl Walker-Peters after the game yesterday, and one of the things he said was, look at the size of Che. Glenn's absolutely right. He's massive, and he can put himself about. And let's hope he does. He's a confidence player, but I absolutely believe that maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, the club probably would have taken the right offer for him. I think Martin Semmens said that as much himself. He said that every player's got a price, but I think now, after 2 weeks later, I don't see how you can think that. I think you have to build your team around him. Let's hope he's fit again on next Saturday.
That was almost a perfect response from him, really, wasn't it? I think to those kind of rumours. And then you got pictures of Ralph hugging him after the game and patting him on the back. He was the first one he went out to. So it's great to see. I must say, Steve, as well, a long throw from Salazar that worked for a goal. I never thought I'd see the day.
it's our one for the season, obviously, after Ward-Prowse scored against Spurs last year.
Of course.
But no, I mean that one actually looked as if it was entirely planned. The way the ball dropped at Bella-Kotchap's feet, and he instinctively knew, right, I'm laying this off inside, only about 2 or 3 yards, but it was perfectly weighted into Che Adams' stride to hit it in.
Adams had peeled off, hadn't he? Because originally the long throw was aimed at him, and he peeled off, left it to Bella-Kotchap, and then smashed the ball in the net. So as far as I'm concerned, that's another one to chalk up to the new coaches, because that's Adams' movement.
It's designed, isn't it?
Yeah, it was clearly designed. And,
I mean, also helps that you're playing against Leicester, whose record of defending set pieces is obviously famously abysmal. I mean, it's just I just don't understand how a team that has been so good can just fall apart so willingly. I mean,
next up, Manchester United.
Well, yeah.
There's a theme. I want to talk about the defensive unit as well, but I think first, before we do that, we should probably just talk about the formation, because we were all, I think, sat here last week saying he's definitely not going to abandon the back five. We're going to be playing with 3 centre backs. So was that a surprise to everybody, Alfie, when you got that team sheet through? Did you think he was going to go with the 4 at the back and put that confidence in Djenepo?
Yeah, I was told about the team the day before, and then I spoke to Adam Blackmore in the press room in the morning, and I was saying to him, I've been given this. It's allegedly a 4-3-3, and we were both saying, well, we don't really believe it. We don't really expect Moussa Djenepo to be playing left back. But that being said, Ralph said that he was going to see if he was going to trust him. I mean, Ralph's answer to every question is we will see. He says that so often, so you never really know if they're actually going to see or not. But look, Moussa played really well, and I think we're definitely going to see that again on Saturday. I mean, there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that he will be left back. Remain, even if he's fit, will probably have to earn his way back in now. You know what Ralph's like with trusting players and loyalty. So I would say that I wasn't surprised necessarily that it was a 4, but I was surprised it was something new again. I mean, how many times has Ralph tried something new now in the last sort of 5 or 6
was
weeks?
it 4-3-3, 4-5-1? It seemed sort of fluid at times.
Yeah, it did. It did change, and people who understand the game far better than I do will say that it was a 5 in possession and a 4 out of it. But there were 3 attackers at the top end of the pitch, and to me, that's a 4-3-3. The
only thing I will say is that I think he was talking about a reset, and that might have been in some of the press conferences that you were at, Alfie. It just surprised me that after 2 games we were talking about having to have a reset already. Was it? I was surprised that they hadn't tried these formations during pre-season more. He just seemed adamant that he was going to play with that back 5.
I think he just felt that he had to. I think he felt they didn't have the options to play with the 4, and whether he didn't trust his fullbacks. So whether Moussa Djenepo didn't trust, or whether it was a case of I don't really want to put Mohamed Salisu and I'm Bella-Kotchap in a 2-man defence, and we've seen Jan Bednarek and Salisu in a 2-man defence, and that doesn't work. So maybe he felt he had to. He tried it didn't work, and then I guess at Leeds, I think he'd have felt a bit of a wrath. Not that he cares what people think, but there'd have been a lot of questions if they lined up with a 5 again after what happened against Leeds last week.
Oh yeah, I had my tweet ready to go. I was all up for that at 5-2, so I was quite surprised. Glenn, let's talk about Moussa Djenepo, because we've all given him his fair share of stick, haven't we, over the course of the last 12 months. But a lot of people saying, Centre Gully on YouTube saying man of the match yesterday. A lot of people saying actually he's really stepped up and he's putting the yards in.
Yeah, I mean, we said it last week. He's learning a new position on the job. And especially in a back 4, it's a very disciplined position, and defensive discipline is not something you'd associate with Djenepo, having watched him for 3 years.
Not if you've watched him like we have.
No. And you can see his brain working sometimes. It's like, I've got to get back in position. I've got to get back in position. And he does. And for the first time yesterday, I thought he looked defensively solid. I think against Leeds, he was great going forward, but defensively, nightmare. But he actually looked good. And maybe it was the fact that, in a flat back 4, he's not in that sort of position between defence and midfield, which a wing back tends to be, and we play the wing backs high as well. So it is a little bit difficult probably to know where you're supposed to be all the time. But when you're fullback, when you're defending, he knows he's got to be next to where Salisu is, and only push up when we've got the ball, sort of thing. So yeah, I can't fault him. I cannot fault him the way he played. He's, you worry that there's going to be a ricket around the corner where he does something dumb, but the same applies to the two lads at centre back as well, because they're young and they might do something rash as well. But yesterday it worked, and hopefully the penny drops with Moussa is that's how you stay in the team. That's how you get a new contract, because he's out of contract at the end of the season, I think.
Yeah,
and that's what he will be working towards. But again, I think he's, it may be that Perrault comes back into the team when he's fit, but Moussa for me has earned the chance to play further forward. Certainly ahead of some of the others that we sort of play in the wide positions. I think he's definitely gone up the pecking order there. So putting these performances in at left back will certainly count in his favour, come the day that Perrault's fit, or maybe he'll stay there all season. Who knows? But we'll have to wait and see.
Well, Luke says Moussa was solid again, even in a back four. Long may that continue. Let's talk about the defensive partnership then, Steve. Obviously, Moussa Djenepo on one side, Kyle Walker-Peters looked more comfortable knowing that there wasn't that space behind him. But then Salazar and Bella-Kotchap, great partnership yesterday.
It worked eventually. I think first 15-20 minutes, Vardy gave Bella-Kotchap a little bit of bother down that channel. I don't think he was quite sure what to expect. As much as Vardy's getting on in years, but he still has that burst of pace, and he's a very clever striker. And when I say clever, I mean he's an absolute cheat and knows how to get away with it. And Bella-Kotchap didn't fall for any of that nonsense. Took a little bit of time just to kind of size it all up. Perhaps a little bit fortunate that Leicester didn't really have any sort of momentum built up in the first half to kind of take advantage of that early situation. But once he kind of got his head around it, Vardy offered nothing, and was he taken off just after the hour?
Yeah,
having not really contributed a huge amount. So can't complain with how that partnership went. I mean, the centre back partnership wasn't responsible for the goal. So essentially, from open play, we've kept a clean sheet in a game that we conceded 4 in last year. So huge improvement. And I mean, I don't even think the free kick that was given for the goal was even a foul, to be honest. Having seen it back, I think he just wins the ball, hooks his foot around him, and the guy goes over. It looked a fair challenge to me, but no, I think that's very promising, and probably less promising for the future prospects of Jan Bednarek. Imagine.
Well, we'll get on to transfers in a minute, but that's on. There wasn't. I made a note of the world-class centre back that missed out yesterday because of transfer speculation. And
Jack Stevens.
Yeah, there's a couple of them, wasn't there? Vanessa says Lavia was also brilliant versus Vardy. And Alfie, just final thing on the defence from yesterday. Were you impressed with that pairing at the back? Do you think we're going to see that again going forward? Could that be the one? Do you think we found it? He stumbled across it.
Look, there'll be another game where we look at it and their performance and it isn't the one. Of course it is, but that's a club like Southampton, it's not going to be 9 out of 10 every week. But just to add on to what Steve said, I think Jamie Vardy had 11 touches in 65 minutes yesterday, and 7 of those came in the first 15 minutes. So that was when he was terrorising Bella-Kotchap, and he could have had a couple of fouls there. I thought Armel was a little bit lucky actually with some of them. But after that, that's 4 touches for the next 50 minutes of football. They completely isolated him, and Iosi Perez, who always scores against Saints, had 1 shot in the game. I thought it was really impressive. To me, it looked like Mohamed Salahou was relishing not being the one that has to go out and attack the ball every single time. He was more. To me, he was a bit deeper. He was playing the firefighter role that Ralph famously described Jan as a couple of years ago, and it was Armel that was getting out. And I just feel like he was a little more comfortable knowing that he didn't have to sort of get there, and it wasn't Jan behind him. It was him just sweeping and clearing.
That's interesting. If he's going to be more comfortable doing that, then that certainly bodes well. Just a quick one on the free kick. Mark says, I agree with Steve. The ref was con for the Leicester free kick. Steve, on that goal, good free kick, bad wall. Do we put that down to the keeper and experience?
Yeah, you got to, unfortunately. The wall is the keeper's responsibility, but it's a learning curve. I'm sure the analysts and the keeper coach they'll be working during the week on where you can line the ball up. Basically, it seems as if you can, I think, if they take them maybe even half a step to the left, that wall probably blocks the free kick. But a player of Maddison's quality, you give him that little space to fire it into, and you're giving yourself a real potential problem. And obviously he found that little gap that he could find, and it just doesn't look good from our perspective. But yeah, it's a learning curve, and we've not been punished for it. Fortunately, we've still got the 3 points.
Which is pretty much what Ralph said as well yesterday, I think, Alfie, wasn't it? That these mistakes are going to happen, and it didn't cost us the game. Yeah,
no, I mean, he was relieved that it didn't cost the game as well, because for Gavin, he can go home and there's no regret there. He can, like you say, work with the analysts, work with the coaches in the week, and he doesn't have to think, oh, well, I've cost my team 2 points in my third Premier League game. It's a lesson to learn. And yeah, I echo Steve's thoughts. It could have been dealt with better, but it doesn't matter. And then they've got all 3 points.
The only thing he's cost is his clean sheet bonus.
Clean sheet bonus, yeah. Or anyone that's got him in a fantasy team, yeah.
It's a very obvious example about inexperience of young players, because, I mean, apart from training at Manchester City, Bazuna will never have come across a player who can hit a free kick like James Maddison can.
No, not
in a match situation. So he probably thought he had the ball line. He's probably lined up the free kick as he would have done in League One, where no one's going to whip the ball in, like that. And it's the sort of one as a goalkeeper that he wouldn't have seen it until it went round the wall. So once it went round the wall and was on target, he was dead, because he's basically covering the other side or covering the cross. So inexperience. There you go.
But great win, and we're all happy, so that's good. It's a break from the league on Tuesday night because it's the second round of the Cup. Cambridge United. This is Tuesday night. The two clubs have been in existence. We tweeted this earlier. A combined 247 years. It's going to be the first time they've met. And I know you were scrapping around, Alfie, to try and find some sort of evidence that there might have been a game, but there hasn't, is there? This is going to be the first game.
No, it's exciting to say before we went on there. It's the reason I like these sort of games. You come up against opposition that's slightly different players will get the chance to play, and you'd like to think there'll be sort of 2, 3, 4 or more goals.
Steve, I've been there for a weekend and it's lovely. I don't know much about the team. Can you shed any light on Cambridge and what sort of game we might expect? What their season's been like?
They've had a good start in League One. They're I think a couple of points outside the playoffs. Beaten some good sides, lost to some ropey ones. Obviously got thumped at Fratton Park during the week, having taken the lead. But they seem to. They're certainly not the Cambridge of old under was it Beck? John Beck,
God,
where it was basically hoof it into the corner.
There's one for the kids.
Into the corner flag, hoping that the sodden pitch would hold the ball up and then play the percentages from there.
Up to Dion Dublin.
Yeah. Yeah. But they're as I say, they're doing all right. The facilities they've got at the Abbey Stadium now is it's probably not called the Abbey Stadium anymore, but is it? No sponsor.
Yeah, you're right.
That's surprising. But their pitch is pretty good at the moment from what I've seen of the highlights this season. So yeah, I think it'll suit us. It won't be a problem. I don't think we're expecting any bad weather in the next couple of days either, are we? So yeah, should be a nice lush surface for us.
The sad reality is there'll be people watching this tonight who had no idea that Dion Dublin was a footballer before he did Homes Under the Hammer. It's like, what's the guy from Homes Under the Hammer?
Stairs up to the bedroom.
Look it up.
Glen, obviously last year we beat Newport 8-0, and it kind of like kick-started. Elanusi scored that hat-trick, and then he went on a bit of a run after that. Brozier, I think, got a couple as well, didn't he? And that was when we started to talk about him. So it is a chance for perhaps some of the fringe players to come in and make a claim.
Yeah, it certainly is. And I think what quite often gets forgotten is that usually the lower league side, they've got other things to worry about as well. And with the League Cup, whatever it's called this year, not being the biggest money spinner until you get, to a round that most of the League One, League Two clubs don't get to, they tend to rest a load of players as well. I mean, Cambridge's, main object of the season will be to get promoted. So whether they lose to Saints or lose to someone else in the next round, they're not really going to be bothered. So I would imagine they'll rest a few. I would imagine we'll change 11. It wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. I mean, that's what we did last year. I think it was 10 changes last year.
I don't think Prowse played, didn't he?
I don't think Prowse did. Yeah, I don't know. I was just trying to think, did Prowse play or not? But we're going to change 9 or 10. So it's going to be the likes of McCarthy, Valerie, Lianco.
I mean, to be honest, I'd play Caballero because McCarthy. We're not going to pick McCarthy. We're clearly trying to move him on if we can. So Caballero's the one that you kind of want to be a little bit sharp just in case. I think
it was also interesting from the Leicester game as well to see. I know, just noticed someone's put it in the comments. Theo Walcott was on the bench and Nathan Redmond wasn't. And
Mark said that. Yeah,
it's interesting that Ralph probably knows, or the club knows, that Walcott ain't going anywhere because no one's going to come in and buy him. Whereas there is a chance that they'll find someone to buy Redmond, which is probably why he's being left out. Maybe he's got a move in the pipeline already. Who knows? So it will be interesting to see who plays in this game. But I imagine Theo will.
Do you think that's going to be the sort of telltale sign, Alfie? If like Redmond and Walcott start, depending on who comes in, will we be able to read perhaps into who's in the plans, who's going to be sticking around? And are you expecting to see the likes of McCarthy and Lianco come in?
I do think so. Yeah, it's a good point. I'll say I would have bet money on McCarthy playing, but like now you mention it, if he has got something else coming up, then maybe they'll play Caballero. If Nathan Redmond's not there involved and he's not injured, then you'd have to say, well, surely he'd want him fit if he's going to play him. So yeah, I agree. But I'm expecting to see Lianco. Jan Valery will play again. Ibrahim Diallo will probably play 90. For me, it'd be interesting to see whether they say Jack Stevens, Jan Bednarek. Last week it was Jack Stevens was at Watford, and that seems to have slowed down at least for now. And Jan Bednarek's got these Aston Villa interest, and they probably can't let both of them go without getting somebody in. So if one of them plays on Tuesday and one of them doesn't, maybe that's a telltale sign.
They did beat Newcastle though last year, didn't they, Steve? Was that the FA Cup? Was that?
Yes. That was. Was that Eddie Howe's first game?
Yes, I think it was.
And yeah, Cambridge went up there and did a number on them, 1-0, which was absolutely hilarious. Because it was one of the first. Because it was one of the first post takeover games, wasn't it? I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
After the murderers came in.
Because it was January, wasn't it? It would have been January, and our game was then not long after that. Yeah. Mark makes a good point as well. Romeo is probably going to come in for a start as well, just to stretch the legs. So it's the Cup on Tuesday. Then back to the league. Manchester United visit St Mary's on Saturday. This is the lunchtime kickoff. This is 12:30. Everybody's smiling. If you're listening to this podcast, we're recording this or streaming this on Sunday night. Now, United don't play until Monday, so they may have thumped Liverpool by the time you're listening to this. They may have been turned over. We don't know. Last season, Glen won. It was another August fixture. It always seems to be an early fixture, doesn't it? This was the one I think with Jack Stevens giving a bit of beef to Fernandes. Yeah. What are your early thoughts on the United game, Glen?
Again, it's one of those ones where you look at when the fixtures were published. I think we all expected United to have signed 7 or 8 very good players by the time this game came around, and it was one of the games that you looked at and thought, that's part of a tough start to the season. But similar to Leicester, I guess, United have had a bad start, and they're just exactly the same as they were last year, only, if anything, a little bit worse. They seem to. I mean, I watched the part of their game against Brentford, and Ralph called it out last year. He said, then what did he say? He very diplomatically said they're not so great in the reverse gears. So basically, when they haven't got the ball, they don't want to run back.
They're travelling backwards.
Don't want to run back towards their own goal, and they seem to be like that, but worse. So they've obviously signed, or it looks like they're going to sign Casemiro from Real Madrid, who will, hopefully for them, correct that defensive midfield weakness that they've had for about 4 years. But there's a really interesting interview with Peter Schmeichel on BBC. It's only a little 2-minute thing where he talks about Casemiro, and he said, look, when he plays for Real Madrid, he gets the ball and gives the ball to the better players. And when he's at Real Madrid, the better players are Toni Kroos and Luka Modric, 2 of the best midfielders in the world. When he gets the ball for Man United, he's going to be giving it to Fred and McTominay and Bruno Fernandes, who doesn't look after the ball either. So it's going to be a different world for him. So it's probably good that it's more than likely, because he can't play tomorrow, he's more than likely going to be his first game as well. Ten Hag the decisions he's made so far have not looked great. The players he's brought in aren't in the team. He's brought in the centre half. He's 5'0", and they seem to be having. So I mean, if Che Adams is on the pitch against him, the way he's sort of bullying defenders at the moment, I mean, if he can bully Johnny Evans, he can certainly bully this guy. So there's definitely absolutely nothing to be fearful of. You don't go into this game with any sort of intimidation factor. Obviously, they've got good individual players who can do something out of nothing. Ronaldo, Sancho, Martial, if he's fit. Rashford might even wake up. They're all capable, but as a team, it's just not happening for them at the moment. And I mean, I don't usually want Liverpool to win, but I'd like Liverpool to absolutely smash them on Monday, and then we can try and keep the foot on the neck on Saturday lunchtime, isn't it? 12:30 kickoff.
12:30 kickoff. Yeah. Steve,
bring it on.
As funny as it is, they're going to click at some point, aren't they? Is it a good time to play them? Does it depend how they get on Monday night?
And after 10 years, haven't we?
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. United have been various shades of nowhere near title contending for 10 years now, since Fergie retired. And yet somehow we've still not managed to beat them at home. We've had a fairly passable record at Old Trafford in that time, but at home we've still not managed to beat them once.
We've lost them over the 9-0 defeat.
Which is sorry, what? Didn't happen. They've been so. It's been so frustrating games against them where there've been a lot of games where we've genuinely comfortably been the better side, but they've pulled something out of the hat and got a result out of the game. And this has surely got to be the best opportunity, even though we're not as good as we've been in previous years. I mean, I'm not sure there's a whole amount of argument against the suggestion that United have never been worse in that period. So yeah, it's got to be seen as a huge opportunity. But it's also one of those situations where I kind of think we can't do what we've done the last two games in sort of giving them the initiative to begin with, and then expect to be able to wrestle it back later.
We don't want to be 2-0 down with 20 minutes to go, do we?
It's got to be the other way around. We've got to start fast. Because as that Brentford game demonstrated, if you run at them, you'll scare the defence to death, and they will not want to know. But if we start sluggish, as we have done, the last two games, even though we've got reasonably positive results out of the Leeds game and obviously a positive result yesterday, I don't think we can get away with starting sluggish against United, because all you do then is you either hand the initiative or you at least give them the opportunity to get a little bit of self-confidence and belief in their game. And then at that point, that's when their individual brilliance comes out.
That's a really good point that Steve's made there, Alfie, about the Brentford game and how they went about it and they took the game to them. So from that point of view, is that how you think we get a result out of this? And does it depend then on Tuesday night and who starts and who comes in for that game? Because if we end up getting to extra time on Tuesday night, or that's a game that takes out the players,
there is no extra time Tuesday. Sorry.
Oh, is it straight to penalties?
Yeah.
Oh, right. So we've got that. But if it's a tougher game and it takes it out of the players, does that then impact on Saturday? You need to be at your freshest and at your best.
Yeah, but I think Ralph will have that in mind, and as a result, we will see 9 or 10 changes, as Glenn said. But there was two good results against United last season. I think it was 2-1 all draws, and there's certainly no fear there. That Jack Stevens, Bruno Fernandes picture, is obviously a good image from last season.
That's on Glenn's blog, that one, isn't it? I remember that from the blog. Brilliant.
But you look back last year, and in that picture, that was a player who was playing every game, performing really well. But you sort of fast forward a year, and it seems like you wouldn't want them in any of the squad. So it's interesting to see how far Bruno Fernandes has fallen off for United. But players like Romeo Lavia and Bella-Kotchap, it's Manchester United. They know who Manchester United are. They grew up watching them. They're probably going to want to raise their game. I don't know how much it plays a role, but I'm sure there's subconsciously, you come up against someone like Man United and you want to play well. The cameras are probably on. And right now that, as we've said, they're probably at their worst they've been. So why not go up there? Why not turn up, do what Brentford did, and see if you can get a couple of goals ahead?
Yeah, that's why those players have come to Southampton, because they want to play in these games against Manchester United. Glenn, the good news is that you correctly predicted the score for the Leicester game. You got 2-1.
I wasn't gonna mention it
Yeah.
because I know Alfie was bouncing around like Tigger last week, telling
Allegedly.
Jacob. I thought I'm just not going to sink to that level.
You can't be trusting the Athletic.
Let you talking about it. But the good news is that I got the right score. I also predicted it on the Leicester podcast when they stopped talking about 9-0.
Oh, that's even better. Even better.
Happy days.
So you get the 3 points. Jacob also predicted the win. The rest of us were less optimistic, I'm afraid, which means, Glenn, you're now top of the table with 5 points. So the early lead. Let's do some predictions for the Manchester United game. Glenn, I'll give you the opportunity to go first, as you won last time round.
Interesting one. I think we'll go for it, and I think we'll swarm all over them. And it'll just be a case of how well they react to it. I think they will be the ones trying to stay in the game. Hopefully. Brentford showed everybody the way to go about playing against this current Manchester United team. Liverpool were going to play exactly the same way as they always do tomorrow, and that will hopefully knock them down a bit more. So I'm optimistically again going for a 2-0 win.
Wow, 2-0. Right, okay. Steve, what are you saying?
I mean, having seen what Brighton and Brentford have done to them by playing very direct and obviously plenty of energy, which you look at the average age of that team that we put out yesterday. There's youth in that team, so there's energy, and I think that's where United come unstuck when teams sort of swarm around them, as Glenn said. If we can get kind of both feet in the game from the start, get an early lead, and I think we can kind of hand out that beating that I think this team has got in them, like once every 6-7 months. So yeah, sod it. Why not? 3-0.
3-0. I thought I was being nuts.
Alfie, are you going to keep this going? Are you going to go with 4-0?
I'm definitely not going with 4-0. I'm going to have to go on.
I'm thinking 1-1, by the way.
Okay,
just to sort of bring things back down to earth. I can't get away from the fact that we just don't ever get that decent result at home. So I'm going for 1-1.
Well, I was going to play the percentages as well, and I was actually going to say 1-1. So I might have to copy you on that one.
Yeah. Okay. No worries. Right. Got those in. If you're watching live, by the way, get your predictions in the comments section. Want to chat about the ladies' team as well, Alfie, because it was their first game yesterday. They played. It was Charlton, and they lost 2-0 at St Mary's. 2,400 people, I think.
2,444. Yeah.
So decent attendance. A lot of season tickets sold. We know that this year. Back playing at St Mary's. That was always going to be a tough game for the ladies, wasn't it? First game back in the Championship.
Yeah, and I'd say 2,400 plus fans there on a day when Southampton's first team are playing at the same time is a really good effort. I still can't quite wrap my head around the scheduling, but Charlton have been full-time for over a year. They've invested a lot of money into their women's programme, and we're talking even more so than Southampton. Many millions of pounds. It's something that they really want to look good at that club. So it's a tough game. It's a really tough game, and maybe the occasion got the better of them. Obviously, I wasn't there. I was in Leicester. My colleague Dan went and said it was a good atmosphere. But there was a penalty save. Kayla Rendell, who scored a header from a corner last season, just saved the penalty on Saturday. We've got an exclusive feature of her coming up this week on the Echo. She worked at Screwfix. She was on the counter at Screwfix last season. Now she's
that's a great story.
And look, it's all through the squad. They've got stories like that.
Football loves a story like that, doesn't it?
Yeah, and these girls have been given a massive opportunity to become professional footballers. And maybe it will take a few weeks to sort of let that sink in. And playing in St Mary's, 2,000 people, I'd probably struggle in my first game.
Yeah, no, it's good to see. And I think, with the crowd like that, I think there's a good season ahead. I wanted to talk about transfers as well, Glenn. Just a few rumours that have been kicking around this week. Obviously, Bednarek to Aston Villa was one. The other one was Ramos, potentially Saints spending £25 million on a striker from Benfica. Do you read too much into that, or is it everything with a pinch of salt at the moment? Because some of this seems to be from credible sources, reports that they met about Ramos and they've had the conversations.
Yeah. I mean, I think the Athletic was reporting that talks had happened, but that could mean we asked the question, they said 25 million, and we walked away. That could mean that's talks, very short talks that don't amount to anything. So I don't know. It's not one that particular rumor is not one I completely write off straight away. It is feasible, but on the other side of that, everyone knows that we're in the market for a striker. In the same way that everyone knows we'd be up for letting Bednarek go or letting McCarthy go. So there will be stories, and as Martin Semmons probably quite accurately said at the fans forum, 90% of what you read, I'm not including the Echo in this, Alfie, of course, but not 90% of what you read certainly on the internet, on these millions and millions of websites,
or here on radio stations that just talk about sport,
or here on TalkSport, or read in the Daily Mail. 90% of them are probably absolute rubbish. So it is hard to know, find the wheat from the chaff sort of thing. But I still think we'll go for a striker, regardless of Che Adams' form over the last game and a half. It still wouldn't surprise me if we brought a fullback in, even with Moussa doing a good job at the moment. But there will certainly be some more comings and goings. It wouldn't surprise me if Ori Romeo left.
Yeah, that was the other one from this week, wasn't it?
Go back and play in Spain or something like that. So there will certainly be a lot going on. I mean, I hope personally, after yesterday, I hope Brendan Rodgers comes in for both McCarthy and Bednarek and then gets sacked.
You drive him up there, wouldn't you?
Yeah. I might as well do this now. Do you remember this? I have absolutely no sympathy for Southampton. They have a choice as a club. They don't have to sell. They had that choice. Maybe Southampton's objectives have changed. They were on course to be a Champions League club, I believe, but obviously that has changed. It's the nature of it. The players will want to compete at the highest level they possibly can. So that was Brendan Rodgers after. So it amuses me greatly that a couple
Did you
of
dig
players,
that out for the Leicester Fans TV podcast?
No, I didn't. But it amuses me that a couple of their players are going full Lallana and and throwing the toys out. But sorry, bit of an aside there.
No, it's always good to remind ourselves of that.
There will be incomings and outgoings in the next couple of weeks.
Just a final one on the transfers, Alfie. What's it like being a football journalist at this time of the year? Is the phone the WhatsApp just constantly going with rumours and things to check out?
I can't wait for September the 2nd, to be totally honest with you. As much as I love it as a fan, you get so much information, and it's so difficult sometimes to get it to stood up. And Jacob, obviously at the Athletic, he has a lot of guys to work with, and he does a great job. What I will say is the Athletic, most of the stuff they say is true. With Ramos and stuff, I'm almost certain those talks did happen. But it's absolutely it's busy. And I think in January it was so quiet, it was eerily quiet. I think by sort of 6 p.m. on deadline day, I'd shut my laptop and it was nothing was happening. I think it's not going to be the case this season. Like Glen says, you'd imagine there'll be 1 or 2, maybe 3 that go out, and you'd like to think there'll be 1 or 2 that come in. That'll be a striker and a fullback.
The good news, though, Steve, is it does feel that if the right player is there, we don't have to sell before we have to buy. I mean, in my head, I'm thinking, well, surely we've got to sell a couple of people before we can buy somebody else. But that's only me making that up. Nobody said that. There's no evidence to back that up at the moment, the way this transfer window's gone.
Yeah, it does look as if we're in an unusually strong financial position, at least from a sort of immediate available cash perspective. I mean, obviously, you don't tend to pay the transfer fee up front immediately at the point of transfer, but certainly committing to that sort of money without the knowledge that we're bringing any revenue in from someone else going the other way is pretty unusual. I mean, it's probably not happened since, I guess, our summer after the Championship promotion, when we obviously had to spend a fair amount to bring a bit of depth and quality into the squad, which obviously involved paying lots of money for Gaston Ramirez. And so that summer we obviously didn't. The only players that went were the ones that ultimately weren't good enough to play in the Premier League, whereas the players we were bringing in were a step up and giving us the opportunity to stay in that division. Whereas now, I think we look sort of immediately just look as if, okay, we can we're okay to get this done, and the owners will back us and kind of cover cover any shortfall that there may be, because I'm sure that sort of in terms of the overall financial picture, I'm sure that we're not making what we spent best part of 50 million in this transfer window. I mean, if we're talking about a 25 million pound centre forward, then that's 75 million committed outgoings without anybody leaving for any money. So that's significant, and we don't make 75 million pound profit.
No.
So that's obviously got to come from external sources. So if Sport Republic are willing to guarantee the checks on that, then great.
Happy days.
Yeah.
Part of the calculation will be the likes of Fraser Forster and Shane Long leaving.
And the wages,
on higher wages. And also, off the top of my head, we've got Redmond, Valerie, Walcott, who, if they don't leave now, will all be probably leaving next summer. So there's light at the end of the tunnel financially with regarding those wages as well. I think they would kill to get McCarthy off the books for that reason, because they've committed to 3 years for him, and probably Jack Stevens. So that would probably be the two that they'd most like to get out the door for financial reasons. But it does sound like there's no tearing hurry to get anybody out. But
could be a busy couple of weeks. That's pretty much it for this week. Thank you for watching along. Thank you for listening. Don't forget that you can follow the Total Saints podcast on Facebook and Twitter. Just have a search for @TotalSaintsPod. On the website, totalsaints.co.uk, there's a link on there to our online shop as well. So you can check out the Icon store anytime you like, and you can get in touch with us there as well if you've got any emails and any questions for the guys. We're also on Patreon, where, should you wish, you can support the podcast with a monthly contribution. You have to head to patreon.com/Total Saints Podcast. There are 4 different tiers ranging from £5 to £20 a month. Each come with different perks. They're all explained online. The Francis Benali tier and the newly named Mick Shannon tier are the top ones. You get a shout on the podcast. So thanks to Dave Melton, Mark Atkins, Matt Hall, who are in the Francis Benali tier, Colt Baker, Dave Ernsberger, Ed Busy, Nick Higston, and Phil Cook, along with Matt Rose, are in our Mick Shannon tier. And a big shout this week to Nick Reed, who's upgraded to the Mick Shannon tier. So thanks for your support, Nick. Cheers to Steve, to Glen, and to Alfie. Thanks, chaps. Have a great week. We'll catch up soon. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you again next week.